Schumpeter's Law, Mark II, presented by Team Oil and Gas, Team 13, which is comprised of Daphne Brune, Robert Payette, and Christina Shanks. Narrated by Daphne Brune. Who was Schumpeter? Joseph Alois Schumpeter was born in Trieste, Habsburg Moravia, then Austria-Hungary, now the modern Czech Republic, in 1883 to German parents. His father owned a factory, but he died when Joseph was only 4 years old. In 1893, Joseph and his mother moved to Vienna. He earned his PhD from the University of Vienna in 1906, and he began his academic career by studying law. He lectured at the University of Bonn from 1925 to 1932. He lectured at Harvard from 1927 to 1928 and in 1930. In 1931, he was a visiting professor at the Tokyo College of Commerce. He was married 3 times. While he moved to the United States permanently in 1932, in 1939 he became a U.S. citizen. Schumpeter had highly conservative political attitudes, and because of this, in the beginning of World War II, the FBI investigated him for pro-Nazi leanings, but no evidence was ever found that he had any sympathies for Nazism. Joseph Schumpeter died January 7, 1950, at his home in Taconic, Connecticut. Schumpeter Mark I. I would like to begin with a brief explanation of Schumpeter's Law, Mark I as it's known, as it is the basis that begins Schumpeter Mark II. Schumpeter's early theory of innovation and entrepreneurship as the driver of economy was laid out in The Theory of Economic Development, published in 1912 in German, and then in 1934 revised in English. Heavily influenced by the ideas found in Karl Marx's Capital, he took those ideas past process innovation to include other types of innovation. In Schumpeter's vision of capitalism, innovative entry by entrepreneurs was the disruptive force that sustained economic growth, even as it destroyed the value of established companies and laborers that enjoyed some degree of monopoly power that was derived from previous technological, organizational, regulatory, and/or economic paradigms. However, Schumpeter was pessimistic about the sustainability of this process, seeing it as leading eventually to the undermining of capitalism's own institutional frameworks. Mark I is essentially a widening, a pattern where innovations are introduced by firms that did not innovate before, thereby widening the market. Schumpeter Mark II. Schumpeter's Law Mark II states that large firms with some degree of monopoly power are likely to innovate. That is to say, if a large or monopoly firm has either sufficiently better technological processes or economies of scale, then the firm may be earning substantial monopoly profits at the same time that it both lowers prices to the consumer and introduces important process and product innovations, since it has the ability to spend more money on research and development. It is a deepening pattern characterized by creative accumulation, with the prevalence of large established firms and some barriers to entry to new innovators. Mark II is derived from theories that were recorded in his 1942 book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Creative Destruction. Capitalism, Socialism, and Creative Destruction is an unusual book, insomuch as it was written to appear sympathetic to socialism, beginning with an account of Karl Marx, in order to encourage socialists to read it. Schumpeter hoped they would achieve self-recognition of the problems with socialism in light of the book without having to be explicitly told. If the book appeared to be favorable to capitalism, he feared, socialists, his target audience, would not bother to read it. Part 2 of Schumpeter's book examined the question, can capitalism survive? In it, Schumpeter identified several theories, the most popular of which was creative destruction. Creative destruction refers to his view of capitalism as necessarily destructive of old ideas through innovation of new ideas. This term was very popular with the technology CEOs during the dot-com era in the late 1990s. The evolution of transportation is a great example of creative destruction. Railroads brought great progress, but also the destruction of old ways of agrarian life. It drastically reduced shipping times and shipping costs. Quick on its heels was the automobile. At one point, there were 260 automobile companies in the United States alone. Once again, the automobile changed transportation drastically. Highways, then freeways, again radically changed the landscape in multiple ways. Then came the airplane, which was another game changer, making the economy truly and quickly global. Some examples of corporate innovation would be good to start off with Walmart. Walmart has leapfrogged other retailers in the use of information technology to manage logistics of the supply chain and to understand patterns of consumer demand. As a result, the company has both been highly profitable and provided the consumer with lower prices, instituting such technologies as RFID. Another case where a firm may have earned substantial profits at the same time that it lowered consumer costs is Microsoft. They're known for their high-quality operating systems, their prices lower than competitors, and with a near monopoly for many years, they've continually invested heavily in research and development rather than relying solely on their market share. For example, in the early days of Microsoft, one reason that Microsoft's DOS became dominant was that it was priced significantly lower than Gary Kildall's CP/M operating system. Another wonderful example is Apple. They started with personal computers like the Apple IIe, and then they evolved into Macintosh computers and their very popular Macintosh laptops. Apple changed the landscape in the early 2000s with the introduction of the iPod, and then again drastically changed the market with the introduction of their iPhone. Later is Google. Started as a search engine, it became an advertising revenue juggernaut as Google's owners learned how to monetize people's searches. Then they became involved in popular cloud applications as Gmail and Google Docs. And then there's their Android operating system. 3 out of 4 mobile phones sold in 2012 had Google's Android operating system. What are the implications in information technology of Schumpeter's Law Mark II? Let's start with cloud technology. IBM was once a near monopoly mainframe business systems retailer. They are now a leading innovator in cloud-based business applications. Apple and Microsoft have illustrated Schumpeter's innovation over the long term, reversing roles several times as leading innovator. Before moving forward, it's probably important to review the past 30 years to trace how exactly they've switched roles as leading innovator time and time again. Microsoft was the leader in innovation with help from IBM throughout the early 1980s, while Apple was in the shadows. Microsoft was able to dominate Apple throughout the 1980s and the 1990s because the company continually developed new operating systems and the like. As Schumpeter predicted, this innovation was able to set Microsoft apart from Apple, but the tide inevitably changed. Around 1991, when Apple introduced the iPod, we definitely began to see a shift in innovation. During this time, Microsoft continued to develop their Windows legacy, but once Apple partnered with Intel in 2006, it was apparent that the changing of the guard may be happening. The number of incredible products that Apple has innovated and produced over the past decade show the remarkable effects of innovation on the market. So who's next? Google's Android has far surpassed Apple's once seemingly untouchable iOS in the mobile phone market share. Will Google soon begin to nibble at Apple's tablet dominance with their iPad? Or will another player, maybe Microsoft with the Surface, enter the field? I think it's clear that no matter who the next big innovator is, there will be winners and there will be losers. The following slides are a bibliography of the sources that we used to create this presentation. Thank you.